Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to the second webinar session sponsored by Conditional Zebra. My name is Aisha and I will be your trainer for today's session. Before we get started, I would like you to mute your mic first so that everybody can hear the session clearly. Okay. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box and we will respond to you immediately. Okay. So today we are going to learn about broken access control. This is one of the top 10 web application vulnerabilities. So before we get into the technical concepts of it, I would like to ask you a simple question. Have you ever watched this movie called The Mask? In this movie, basically, the person who gets access to the mask is able to get some superpowers. I would like you all to keep your mic mute, please. Okay, so if you have ever watched this movie, you know that the person who gets access to this mask is able to get some super. Okay, please remember to mute your mic so that there is no disturbance during the session. Thank you. Okay, so I know that everybody is trying to compare the mask with the latest situation because everybody is looking to use the respiratory mask because of the virus situation here. Okay, so let's assume that a person gets the mask. So in this movie, basically the person who gets the mask becomes a superhero or something of the sort. And in the movie, there's also a dog called Milo. When the Milo is actually using the mask accidentally, it also becomes like a superhero. Now, let's try to compare this situation with a web application. Okay, so imagine uh, one user is actually having a super admin access, and if the application wants to identify the particular user, there may be some particular mechanism to identify the user itself. So what are the chances that another user can obtain this super admin access? Okay, so it can be like another admin user is trying to obtain the super admin access, or an authenticated user is trying to obtain the super admin access, or it can be a user who is not a valid user on the application, who is not authenticated to the system, but they become the super administrator. Okay, so if you had skipped the last session, which we connected last week, basically we discussed about the OWASP organization. So this is an open source organization which is dedicated to finding and researching the top 10 vulnerabilities on different platforms. This was started in the year 2001. They release updates every 2 years or 3 years on different platforms, basically. Okay, and the company is like mostly a bunch of security researchers who research about the different hacking attempts happening across the globe. They try to grade the vulnerabilities, and when a person is conducting a security testing, which is penetration testing on a website, it is our job to find the vulnerabilities and remove them. So they have released top 10 risk on different platforms like web application, mobile application, IoT, client, etc. Okay, so the top 10 application risk for web category here. We discussed this last week, and today we are going to learn about broken access control. Okay, so basically the root cause for this vulnerability to exist on a web application is because we fail to conduct functional testing on the application. Okay, and when we want to find these problems on an application, so we want to test for the target parameters which allow authorization on to a particular user on the particular application. Okay, and the next item is the impact. So if, let's say, I don't conduct proper functional testing on my application, what can go wrong on my application? So basically, a hacker can try to get unauthorized access. They can compromise a computer, they can compromise a server, or they can compromise other system users on the web application itself. Okay, and the topics included under this category are listed down here. So which is file inclusion attack, insecure direct object reference, also called as IDOR, and the third one is missing function level access control. Okay, so we are going to learn these three attacks using different applications. All right, so the first one we will discuss about is file inclusion attacks. Okay, So this is actually divided into two categories, local and remote file inclusion. This affects PHP applications only. This is because PHP application has got a special feature which can include the content of one file inside another during runtime. Okay, this content can also be a user input, which means if I am going to get the content of a file from a user and I fail to do validation on it, it can do some other attack on my application server. Okay, so what basically can go wrong is it can lead to a hacker going through the directory contents of my application, and we also call this as directory traverser, and the hacker is able to read the contents on the web server. Okay, so to demonstrate this attack, I am going to use an application called DVWA. If you would like to set up DVWA on your system, you can use this website, dvwaco.uk. You can go here, just go down, download. You can choose any server to host it and you can test it out. So I have used a virtual machine to host this on a Windows operating system. So this is my application here, DVWA. So the default username and password for DVWA is username is admin and password is password. I am going to log into the application first. Okay. So after we log into the application, we have to go to DVWA security. So as you may see here, there are 4 levels of security inside this application. This is an application which is built by security researchers to basically learn how to pen test a web application. Okay, so we are beginners, so we will start with level low. So once you have mastered level low, you can set it to medium or high. If you are a developer, you want to know more about protecting your application, you can change it to impossible and you can go through the source code there to understand how to protect your application. Okay, so after you log in, you change the security level to low and remember to submit. Okay, you can also scroll down and see what kind of security level you have set up on your application. Okay, so I'm going to file inclusion over here. So as you may see over here, so there is like a different file name over here. Okay, so if we can navigate to different files, so let's say I go to file1.php, you can observe the URL is changing to file1.php, and I'm going back, I go to file2. So if we observe, the file name is actually incremental. So most of the developers use this kind of technique to orderly place the files. So it can be like January, February, or something predictable. So let's say I just want to guess whether there is any hidden file on the web server. I can manually try to change the file number here. I want to check whether there is a file called number 4. So I go to file number 4. So this is basically a hidden file, but I am able to access it. This file is residing on the web server, but I'm able to access it just by changing the file name on the URL. So this is called as local file inclusion. Okay, so this is actually hosted on a Windows platform. So what a hacker basically does is they use different operating system installations, maybe on virtual machines or whatever software they prefer, and they try to learn the architecture of the operating system. Okay. Once they learn about an operating system, they know which files are sensitive. So for example, if the hacker is able to access a Windows computer, they can try to access files like this, Windows system INI. So as you can see here, this is basically an operating system file. So there are some information about the Windows operating system device driver initialization over here. So this system is actually running a program called XAMPP, which I have used for hosting my web application. So if the hacker managed to find all the platforms installed over there, they can also try to access the logs. So for instance, I am trying to open the logs over here. So you can see the logs from 2015. There are some logs they can try to access. There are also other system files. So for example, the host file on a Windows operating system tells about the IP address and domain name translation on a computer. So I'm trying to access the information over here. So this is the etc host file. You can see the content over here. So these are the examples when which can happen, attacks which can happen on a Windows operating system. Now I'm going to show you another application which is hosted on Unix platform. Okay, so I have hosted an application over here. So let's go to the other application where I'm running a software called WebGrind. So WebGrind is basically a debugging platform for PHP. So this particular WebGrind is an outdated version and it is popularly known for local file inclusion attacks. So if we just modify the URL, we are able to read different file contents over here. So I'm going to access a file called password. The file name is password, PASSWD, and it is located inside the root directory /etc. Okay, so this file is basically containing user information on a Unix platform. Okay, so if you are very familiar with the Unix platforms, you can also try to load different files inside this particular directory, which is like, for example, group. So this is the group information for the usernames existing on the particular system. And also you can access the host file. You can just try to navigate through different contents. So for example, mtab. This file is actually containing system information file. And if you are curious to know about the version number and things like that on the computer, you can also try to access the location, which is proc/version. You can see the information about the Ubuntu system over there. If you are curious to know about uh, the drives which are hard disk on the computer, then you can also access the file called mounts. So this tells about the information, how many drives are there, how much space is left over there, all those stuff. Okay, so this is how a local file inclusion attack works actually. Okay, so basically what we are trying to do here is, if we spot that there is a PHP application, we try to attempt loading contents on the web server directly. So based on the operating system, you will try to modify your file search. Okay, so the next attack we are going to learn is remote file inclusion. This is similar to local file inclusion, but what happens here is the application basically reads remote files. So for instance, so let us go back to our application over here. So our DBWA. So I'm going to give a URL. So for example, https google.com. So this is not a malicious content, but as you can see, the different website is basically loaded inside the application DBWA. So this is called as remote file inclusion. When the application has the capacity to load contents of another website inside it, we determine that it is vulnerable for remote file inclusion attack. So the hacker won't do some simple random testing like google.com like this, because this is actually harmless. What a hacker will basically do is they will try to load contents of a harmful file. Okay, so there are different files. One of the popular item is C99. This is called a web shell. So web shell is a program which allows a user to remotely control another server. So as you can see here, I have hosted it on a different computer. So I'm going to use this URL and this file and check whether I can remotely control the DBWA web server or not. So I just replace the URL over here. I include my web shell name. Okay. So as you can see, I'm inside the directory C XAMPP, htdocs, and I'm able to see what is the space, hard disk information, the software used for hosting the web application itself, what kind of operating system they are running, and I can see how many drives are there, the space, how much files are there, all the files and information. I can also run extra commands. I can do whatever I want. So this is called as remote file inclusion. Okay, so the application reads remote files and it allows code execution. So we can directly execute a shell file and control the target web server. Okay, so web shells are usually preferred for this kind of attacks. You can just search online. There are many popular web shells available on the internet, and you can also go through GitHub. There are different types of uploads. If you prefer, you can also create your own web shell to compromise the target server. Okay, so the important element now is, after you determine the vulnerability is existing on the web server, you need to protect your application. So for the mitigation, you need to include configuration setting over there, which is called allow URL include, and this value must be set to off. And another value is allow URL fopen. So this value also must be set to off to protect the application from both local and remote file inclusion attacks. Okay, so if you really think that your application must use the file inclusion feature, then we have to go for validating user input. Don't accept all the user input without checking them properly. So once you receive it, you have to validate whether it contains any malicious program or URL or any other unwanted stuff inside it, and remove it appropriately. Okay. So the next item under discussion is basically sorry. The next topic we are going to discuss is IDOR. So IDOR is basically insecure direct object reference. So here we are going to discuss how the application is identifying different users on a particular application. Okay. So in insecure direct object reference, what happens is the object references used by the application is easy to predict. Okay, so for example, let's say in real time, so every employee has got their own access card. So I believe you all still remember that you are using access card when you go to your office despite staying at home now during lockdown. Right, so let's say there are two employees, one person is an accountant and another person is an IT person. So the accountant will not have permission to access the IT server room. Okay, so though the access card looks similar, only the IT guy can go inside the server room, right? So the application, the web application also will have similar keys, but each key will have different type of permission for different type of user. So for instance, key 1 is assigned for user 1, key 2 is assigned for user 2, and key 3 is assigned for admin. Okay, so what will happen if the accountant manages to obtain the IT guy's access card? So if I am an accountant and I got the IT person's access card, I can go into the server room. So this is what happens in real time when a user is testing a web application. They try to change the key and check whether they can access restricted information or privileged information. Okay, so let's assume that the user 1 obtained the key 2, and they will check whether they can retrieve user 2 information or not. Okay, so if they successfully manage to retrieve the information, since both the user of belonging to the same category, this is called as horizontal privilege escalation. Okay, I am a user, I'm supposed to see only my contents, but I am managing to change the key and see another person information. So let me show you an example for this. So I'm going to use Sparks application again. Okay, so I go here. So this is a different application. So I go to login here. I'm going to log in with my username. Okay. I log in, I go to my profile information. So as you can see, my profile data is here and the URL is showing me my user ID is number 6. Okay. So this is a key. So the key can be of different categories. It can be publicly disclosed on the URL, or it can be hidden parameter in page source content, or it can be in the source code. It can be inside the request file. We don't know. We need to find when we test the application how the application is distinguishing each user on the system itself. Okay, so my username is Aisha. I log into my system and I go to my profile. I can see my user ID is 6. If it is a normal user, they won't bother to check this data. But as a pen tester, we are always curious. We want to find and find different ways to access data or break systems. So let's say I try to change my user ID. I'm just changing it to number 7 and see what happens. I am able to see a different person's information over here. So this is called as horizontal privilege escalation. Though I managed to get the data of another user, I am still on the same level of permission. Okay, so this is called as horizontal privilege escalation. So what will happen if the user 1 is managing to access admin information? So now from a normal level permission, I try to go to a higher level permission, right? So this is called as vertical privilege escalation. Okay, so let's see an example for the same. So I go here, I try to change it, maybe number 8. As you can see, I'm able to access the admin information on the application. So this is called as vertical privilege level escalation. Okay, so based on the application we are testing, we need to determine how the developer is managing to identify the particular user on the application. Then we need to test. Okay, All right. So if you're a developer and you're trying to implement a feature, please remember not to disclose the data to the public. So sometimes it is just displayed on the URL itself, or it is like a hidden parameter in the source code, or inside the request file. When we are testing using proxy application, we can see the information over there. Okay, it is not recommended. All right. So basically the problem is lying around the access control limitation itself. So when the application is not checking, so I log in as user Aisha, but when I go and cross check, I am able to see the information of another user, right? So when I try to access the information of another user, the application should check, okay, this user login as username Aisha, but they are trying to access data of another user, which is supposed to be like rejected. So when I try to change the user ID, they are supposed to reject my request. But right now they didn't cross check anything. They permit me to go ahead. Okay. So the basic misconception is that when we try to hide data in the post request or get request, people cannot find it. So it's not like that. People always manage to find information which is hidden and crack and obtain more privilege on our application. Okay. So the next item we are going to learn is missing function level access control. Actually, this may look a bit simple, but it's actually very important for every application. So imagine you throw a party and you have invited lots of people to your house. You are not going to let them run the show for you, right? So it's like you're working in an office, you have restrictions, so you cannot go and use your boss cabin. You will still be in your seat, right? So same way here. So when I'm going to an application, when I click on a different page, the URL is obviously going to change whenever I click on a different pages, right? So if the user try to manage the URL to some action there, and if they manage to obtain permissions of different type on the application, then it will lead to a problem. So when a user is manually changing the URL to read information which are not supposed to be given to them, we call it as missing function level access control. So this can happen in different kinds actually. So a user can try to so if you are a pen tester, you need to be careful about this because the user can try to read data from different locations. So for example, let's say I go back to the Spark application. Okay, so this is the home page of my application. Okay, so most of the application have a component called robots.txt. Okay, so this is a file which tells the search engines that these folders should not be reached by a search engine. But this file can be manually accessed in most cases, and the hacker can actually read the contents over here directly. So let's say I go to the file, the folder name demo. So I can see the information over here. All right. So they have some hidden information, WP. So we can see there is also some information is still loading, right? So the hacker can manually go to these locations and then they try to find sensitive information. So this is called as missing function level access control. So though they are trying to protect this directory from search engine, they did not protect it from manual testing. Okay. So this is one way of testing it. Another way of testing this is, so let's say I go to, okay, I'm on incognito mode. I would like to open a normal window first. Okay. So I'm going to open a normal window and access my application. Okay, here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into the application again. Okay. So we have to compare the functionalities available for a user before logging in and after logging into the system. Okay. So I have logged into the application. You can see I have access to my profile information. I can download a brochure. I can go to suggestion box. I can actually book a room. So previously I was on incognito mode. As you can see, I haven't logged into the application yet, but I can only have few information. So like hotel, gallery and contact. So as you can see, there are different items. So this is the location where I have logged into the application, and this is where I haven't logged into the application yet. Okay. So as you can see, the functionalities always change when a user logs in or authenticates themselves to the application. Okay. So as a pen tester, it is our responsibility to check whether the features which are available for a valid authenticated user can be accessed by an unauthenticated user who is not permitted to see the information. The easiest way to cross-check this is, so here we have suggestion box, for instance. So I have a facility to submit my feedback to the system administrator. So what you can do is you can just copy this URL, go to incognito mode here and check whether you can manually load it directly or not. So this may look like a simple test. As you can see, I'm able to load it on incognito mode. I'm testing it on incognito mode because I don't want the browser cache to reflect how my application is accessing the cookies. If you don't feel comfortable, you can also open a different browser. So for example, I'm using Chrome right now. So you can also open something like Firefox or another browser, whichever you are comfortable with. You can actually compare whether this feature is available only for authenticated user or not. So previously I was testing a government website here and I was able to access almost every page on the application without logging into the application, which means there is no need I have to log in. The whole system is available for any user basically. I don't have to authorize myself to access the information over there. Okay, so next thing I'm going to show you is, so for instance, I go to download brochure here. So this feature is available only for an authenticated user. So I'm going to copy this URL, okay, and I'm putting this on incognito window here. Okay, so there are sensitive files like this on every application which can be accessed by unauthorized users. Okay, so this can also lead to another attack which is called as forced browsing. So when a user basically sees the file name like this with an extension, they normally don't bother much, but a hacker will become more curious. What they try to do is they try to remove the file name manually and try to access the contents in the previous directory. Okay, so if you have hosted web applications, you know basically an application is containing different files inside different folders, all right? So we are able to see the contents of a directory here. So this is called as forced browsing, okay? So a hacker tries to access the contents of a directory and tries to misuse the permission or the access level they have and gain control on sensitive information. So in most cases, hackers are able to see the backup files, SQL database contents, all those things by accessing this directory contents. So another way of testing this is you can just go to the website, the home page, and access the page source by right click on the browser. Just go to page source here and look for any folder name on the application itself. So just try to see. So for example, this is a folder name. So I can go here. I can remove the file name and try to access the folder name, folder contents over there. So as you can see, this application is allowing people to manually change the URL and access the contents on the website. Okay, so this is also an example for missing function level access control. So a hacker manually changes the contents of the URL. They try to visit restricted content. So the testing will not be found by automated scanners because this is all related to the application itself. So the scanners are not artificially intelligent, right? They cannot find everything belonging to your application. So it is our job to go and find the items manually. All right. So authorization is basically telling whether the user has a particular level of privilege or permission to access particular resources or not. All right, so only authorized user is able to read or access a particular item on the server, or they get to perform particular activity or feature on the application. So by the title missing function level access control, what we are trying to say is the server is failing to cross-check whether I have the permission to do the activity or not. So going back to our example, I am an accountant. I somehow managed to get the IT guy access card. When I go and access the server room, they need to check whether the person who is holding the access card is the real user or not, is a permitted user or not. If they don't cross-check, which means anybody who holds the card can go inside the server room, which is not good, right? So that is what we are trying to achieve on our web application. Okay, so basically how this occurs is the developer fails to cross-check the functions on the web server, and we don't cross-check whether we have particular level of permission is granted to the user or not. And when we want to protect sensitive information, we fail to cross-check whether it can be accessed by unauthorized user or not. Okay, and applications have different categories of this vulnerability. So one is they try to hide the sensitive action over there, and we don't cross-check the authorization level for some features. So sometimes when we implement the application, what we do is we think that, okay, out of 10 features, maybe 1 or 2 is very critical. We cross-check that and we leave the 8 without testing, which is not good. We need to make sure we check all the features which are available on the application. Okay. And the third item is exposing action. So sometimes we just use hidden parameters or something in the request or the form or inside the source code, which can tell the hacker how to gain access on the item which they are not supposed to access actually. Okay, and last but not the least, which is forced browsing. So basically forced browsing is when a hacker tries to visit the directory contents manually on the browser. So this can be coupled with other programs called as directory enumeration software. Like there are lots of software scanners we can use to find the list of directory existing on the target web application, and they try to manually visit the folders to check whether the folder is containing any sensitive data like backup file, configuration file. Sometimes there is also like hard-coded values which are very important, and in most cases we are able to see data like the data which is intellectual property for the company itself. Okay, so when we want to test the application, we can do in different stages. So one is we log in as a normal user on one browser, and we log in as an administrator on another browser, and then we try to compare the request forms, how the application is trying to determine who is a normal user and who is an administrator. Okay, and then we try to check whether the regular user can become an administrator or not, which means can a regular user access the pages which only administrator is supposed to access. Okay, another comparison has also need to be tested, which is we need to compare whether a user who is not authenticated to the system is able to gain access on authenticated contents over there. Okay, apart from these discussed issues, there are also a list of commonly found access control problems on a web application. Okay, this is about how we allocate permission to the users in general. So when a user is registering on our website, are we going to give them all same level of privilege, high level of privilege? Because we need to categorize how many types of roles we want to give. Some applications will have permissions like approver, manager, admin, super admin, all those things. Some applications don't have such categories. So every user, like for example, you're on e-commerce platform like Shopee, Lazada, every user who registers is basically a customer. So everybody is falling under the same category, right? So when the developer or the hosting company wants to manage the accounts, they will have admin level privileges, which is not supposed to be accessed by other users. So you need to categorize how many roles you want to have on your application, and you have to implement it accordingly. Okay, and next one is don't simply try to get go under the assumption that if I hide the item like the path or anything, the users cannot find me. Okay, so you cannot simply put a hidden parameter to protect and assume that nobody will guess it. All right. And next one is sharing of accounts. This is widely found in the case of administrators. So the administrators think that they are very good, so they can share the information. Okay, it's actually not good. Excuse me. Okay, so sometimes what we do is we don't categorize the permissions. So like we have administrator permission on Windows level, Windows operating system, the root user is on the Linux platforms. So we give full control for the users. It is not recommended. And for protecting the application from forced browsing, you can just modify your configuration file and disable the forced browsing over there. Okay. All right. So the last one is when we are implementing the features, we just assume that all the administrators belong to in-house employee category, and we don't have to basically implement secure features for the administrator, which is actually not good. All right. So when we want to protect our applications from all the access control issues, we need to follow the guidelines listed down over here. So don't create patterns, which means guessable usernames or identifiers like the IDOR, like you use user ID or something, which can be guessed by the hacker. Excuse me. All right. Okay, so when we are allocating permissions for the users, we need to make sure that we don't give them full permission and try to remove it one by one. Basically, we start from scratch. We give them limited permissions and then we try to allocate roles and responsibilities based on requisition or the need for giving the permission. So if you have different role and category on the application, make sure the administrator has an ease of mode like the modules to allocate and revoke the permissions. And don't go for hard coding information. So let me show you an example for hard coding information. So I'm going to show you another application. This is also a testing application. You can actually go here and learn how to do pen test. So I'm going to select signing over here. So as you can see, I'm going to the page source, and this website actually has hard-coded username and password. You can see the username and password is actually hard-coded over here. This is called as leaving the kind of like sensitive information on the source code itself. So I'm going to log in with my username as username and password is password. Okay. So basically they are leaking the username and password over here. I'm using it to log in, and you can see I have successfully logged into the application. So sometimes we leave sensitive data on the source code itself, which is not at all recommended. All right. And we also need to cross-check all the business logic inside our application. So business logic is actually relevant only for the particular application, which means, so let's say the application is like a CRM, or it is used for submitting claim forms for your employees, or you are having some HR management systems or something of the sort. So every application is basically unique, and they contain some features which are applicable only for the particular application. We call them as business logic. So you need to cross-check whether the authorization is properly implemented for the business logic feature on the application. Okay, and we need to make sure that we never include per user basis permission, which means, so let's say my application is having 5 users. If I'm going to allocate permission for every user whenever they register, it's actually a time consuming process. So as we discussed earlier, we need to categorize how many user roles we are going to have on our application, and we need to categorize the permission levels for them, and whenever they register, they basically fall under the particular group or category. So this way we can manage the permission for a bunch of users, and we can review them and audit them easily. The last one is when we enable the logs on a particular system, right? Mostly we fail to cross-check the logs when the user actually failed to load particular item. Okay, so it's like whenever we log into the application, there will be a log created. So we only look into the successful logs which are created, which is not sufficient. So whenever a user is, whenever we are verifying the permission level of your users or the access logs or something, we need to compare the logs between failed attempts and successful attempts. So this way we will know whether a particular user is trying to do some different types of attacks like brute force attacks, all those things. So if a user is going to try 4 times, 3 times they have failed, which means they put wrong password 3 times and they managed to go in the 4th time, which signifies that they are trying to do something on a repeated fashion. So this can also signify that they are trying to hack into our web server. Okay, so if we never check the fail logs, we cannot identify that they are trying to hack our application, right? So whenever we review the logs, we need to cross-check that that we compare the successful logs with the failure login attempts. Then we know, okay, they are trying to escalate their privileges over there. All right. So What we have learned today is about the access control limitations on the application itself. So basically, we are trying to compare what kind of permissions a user will have on the application. So we have learned three types of attacks. So the first one we learn is file inclusion attack. So as a recap, I will show you one more example for file inclusion attack. So we were discussing on the zero web application security, right? So I'm going to this URL here, like the help topic. So as you can see, if a user is able to manipulate the server to load the contents on the web server. So let's say I know what operating system they are running here, and then I try to load the file. So let's say I go and give something like /etc/password. So which means if it is a Linux system, I am able to read the file contents from the web server. It is called as local file inclusion. So I don't know the target OS. So let's say I try to load a remotely hosted file. So I give some URL here. I load a malicious program inside, and if I can access the contents inside the application, so it is called as remote file inclusion. Okay, so this is called as file inclusion attack. So it's actually still loading. So I'm loading google.com, which is actually not harmful. This is just, I'm just showing you an example. So if the application is going to host something which is malicious and they are able to load it, it is called as a web shell attack basically. So as we discussed earlier, I was showing you how to access the C99. So this is a very popular web shell. So if I manage to host, I have hosted my web shell in a particular location, and I'm trying to load it here to take control on the web server. So this is called as remote file inclusion. And the second one is insecure direct object reference. So what we discuss here is I am logging into a web application, and I try to see whether I can access different user permission or not. So I go here to my application and I log in as a user. So let's say I log in with my username and password. So after I log in and access my profile, I notice the URL is changing and telling my user ID. So I manually change it and try to load a different user information. So when I go to different users, so if I am traveling on the same level, so I am able to access the content of another user of same category. It is called as horizontal privilege escalation. So just in case if I become an administrator, then it is called like a higher level permission. It is called as vertical privilege escalation. Okay, the third item is missing function level access control. So what we try to do here is we try to compare whether a user who is not authenticated to the system is able to load sensitive information or not. So as discussed earlier, so I am here, I have logged into the app, I'm able to see sensitive data like proprietary information for the particular user customized, which is the brochure. So I go to an incognito, I open incognito window. All right, then I go and paste the URL. So I see whether I can access it without authorizing myself to the application. So this is called as missing function level access control. So in order to test this, we need to understand the application completely. So we have to understand what features are there, and then we compare whether an authenticated user is able to elevate their privileges or an unauthenticated user is able to see sensitive information or not. Okay. So this is how we test for the three vulnerabilities falling under the category broken access control. Okay, so we have reached the end of the session. So these are the list of services which are offered by Condition Zebra. You can see the list of items over here. So if you have any questions about our services or training programs, please feel free to contact us. So you may reach us through email and WhatsApp listed over here. If you have any questions, please feel free to post it in the chat and we will get back to you. So for your information, this session is recorded, and after the session, we will share the recorded URL with you all. Okay. So this is your time to ask questions. So whatever questions you may have, please post it in the chat and we will reply to you. So I thank you all for joining the session today. So please feel free to ask your questions in the chat and we will respond to you. Okay, so besides DVWA, there are a lot of testing applications. So if you are interested, you can actually go to, for example, you can go to vulnweb.com. This is sponsored by Accunetics. As you can see here, this is like a clone version, but they are hosted on different platforms. You can go and test it over here. There is also another website called demo.testfire.net. So this one is actually hosted by IBM. You can also go here. This is a simulation for bank application. And the another example I gave you today is Zero Web Application Security. You can also use this. This is also a banking application. This app has interesting items also. DVWA is also popular, and there are many applications. For example, another one is called Mutility. You can actually use this. This is also from OWASP, and OWASP also has got different applications like Juicebox. So you can, these are all open source. You can just download and configure on your computer, and you are free to test and learn. Okay, let's see. Some more sessions on OWASP Top 10. Yes, we will update you about our upcoming sessions later on. You can check our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, and I will ask our marketing team to let you know about the future sessions. Okay. Let's see. Okay, is there any guideline to do web application testing? So for web application testing, basically we use the OWASP Top 10 category itself. So if you are new to OWASP Top 10, what I can recommend you to do is you can read the testing guide from OWASP. So let me show you the page. So there is a version for testing guide from OWASP. You can actually go here. They have listed down the top 10 web application risk, and they have also broken it down into small items. So it's like a checklist for you. You can follow the checklist over there, and you can try to find all the vulnerabilities listed down over there. Okay. For practical site on the directory traversal, you can use any of the websites I showed to you earlier. So there are many websites like this, like scanners and engines also, like NetSparker, all those, they provide different application for testing and learning purposes. So I'm not sure how many vulnerabilities are there on every application actually. So you can manually go and test all the applications, and you can experiment it. Okay. There is no .NET version of DVWA, but if you are interested in .NET, you can actually follow here. I think Accunetics, this one, the vulnerable web over here, this is also hosted in ASP.NET. You can try this. And Altero Mutual also has got few versions. They also host it on Tomcat, Apache, and .NET. You can actually look for the websites and you can test them. Okay. Okay, for remote file inclusion, first thing we have to know is the target programming language. So once you know what type of programming language they are using, you can actually try to write a coding on your own, or you can just search online. So in GitHub also they have like a repository. There are a lot of sample coding over there. You can download WebShell and you can take it out. So WebShell is actually very popular. You can just search for WebShell and you can see there is like a lot of websites which host it actually. So WebShell download. So there are a lot of websites which host WebShell. These are very popular. You can actually try to play around with that. Okay. Okay, so I will inform my team to share the previous session link as well. Okay, and next question. I think some of the questions are being answered by my team as well. Study material on web application pen test. Okay, so if you want to learn about the attacks, I can recommend one website for you. This website is actually sponsored by a scanning engine called NetSparker. So you can actually go here. Please remember, this is not a website to attack. Okay, this is actually where you can go and learn. So this is a learning platform. Please don't go and hack this website. Okay, so you can see here. So this is a very good place for you to learn. You can actually go and learn. If you don't register your account, you can access only few vulnerabilities. If you register your account, then you can also learn more attacks. It's actually a very interesting platform to learn about web application vulnerabilities and pen tests. Okay, DVWA is not available on IIS servers. So if you want vulnerable applications, DVWA is not the only application. You can actually use different websites like we discussed earlier. You can use Altero Mutual or Accunetics or different websites to learn actually. And if you're interested, you can also refer to OWASP website. They have lots of websites which are configured over there. You can learn. For inserting shell into a system, there are multiple ways actually. Okay, so it's like either we use remote coding program like the web shell. We just try to file upload. So there is an upload feature on the application. So instead of uploading a normal file, we can try to upload a web shell, and we try to remotely control the system. Or I can host it on a particular location, and I will try to give the URL and remotely control it. Or we can also use different programs, like for example Metasploit. We can actually use it for hosting the malware program. We can couple it with phishing attacks. We can try to compromise the system as well. Yes, we will share both the previous recording and today's recording. So later we will share the information with you. Okay, difference between broken access control and authentication. So broken authentication is more towards handling the authentication feature itself. So when a user is registering the account or logging into the account, what are the possible attacks which will go around, that is under broken authentication actually. Access control come into picture when we are trying to log into the app and access a particular feature, or without logging into the app, we try to access a privileged file or a feature. Okay. Okay, for web application scanners, there are many scanners available in the market. You can actually go for Burp Suite, Accunetics, NetSparker. There are many different types of paid software, and open source is also available. But if you are doing the testing only using a scanner, it is not penetration testing actually. It is actually vulnerability analysis. So we use a software, and the software is going to tell me what kind of vulnerabilities are there on my application. It is called as vulnerability scanning. Not all the results in the report is basically a vulnerability. It can be a false positive, which means the scanner thinks it is a problem, but when we go and investigate, there is no problem, right? So that is called as vulnerability analysis. So penetration test basically includes vulnerability analysis and manual testing. So in manual testing, we try to find all the web application risk which is available in the industry right now. Like we follow OWASP top 10 or all those things to mitigate the problems. Okay. So some of you have asked for the previous webinar link, which has been posted in the chat. Please feel free to take it. Okay. Yes, WebGoat is also a popular web application you can use for learning actually. So if you are interested, I can also recommend you one more, which is from OWASP. So because sometimes people don't want to install too many items, so you can actually go to this. This is called OWASP Broken Web Application. This is a collection of like vulnerable applications built for learning purposes. So you can download this VM, and it contains more than 25 applications actually. You don't have to host one application after another. You just have to download this, and you can have access to multiple web applications. So this one is platform. So you can see here, this is a sample how it looks. So all the vulnerable applications are basically there. This is very easy to configure, and you have multiple applications for learning, and WebGoat is one of them. Okay. Okay, let me see questions. No, I'm not going to tell you what programming language the government website was using. I just gave you an example. So it's like most of the applications don't basically cross-check whether an unauthenticated user can access privileged information or not. So yeah, so the platforms can vary, and we also test lots of penetration tests. What is the future of web application pen test jobs? Okay, so as long as web applications are available, I believe penetration test is also going to be in the market, because not everybody is following secure coding practices, right? So, and when let's say I'm a developer and I am not confident enough to check out all the secure areas of my application, I also need another person to cross check for me. And in terms of compliance, sometimes what happens is the compliance authorities don't accept the reports from the internal or in-house testing teams. We still need a third-party vendor to test the application and certify whether it is free of vulnerabilities or not. So obviously penetration testing jobs are going to be in the future. Video sessions for learning, hacking, and penetration tests. You can refer to websites like Udemy, e-learning, hacking articles. There are so many websites actually. You can also refer to Cybrary. Okay. Suggestions on top 10 OWASP. As a developer, what you can do is you can also go through the top 10 proactive controls. So let me show you that. Let me look for that first. So if you're a developer and you're looking to protect your application, you can actually follow the guidelines. So we call them proactive controls. So you can go to OWASP website and you can see they have top 10 listing for the developer. Okay, so as a developer, you can try to follow all these 10 steps over here to overcome or protect your application from the top 10 web application risk. Okay. Okay, there is no special guideline like if I use one particular programming language or a platform, I am more vulnerable. So it is more towards whether the developer is following secure coding practices or not. So if I don't follow any secure coding practices, I keep doing the same mistakes repeatedly, my application is not going to be secure, right? So when we implement the app, we need to think we need to remember basically that among the user, hacker is also going to be there, and they can try to misuse the permissions, try to break it or steal information. And web application is like guest Wi-Fi basically. So you have absolutely no control whether one user is having limited permission or not, and how long the guest is going to be on my Wi-Fi. You cannot control, right? You're opening guest Wi-Fi. You expect multiple people to log into the Wi-Fi. So web application is like that. You host it and it is available on the internet. You cannot stop people from using your website. So if I don't implement any kind of security permissions or limitation over there, people are definitely going to misuse the access available for them. Okay, so for developers, you can actually follow the listed item over here. So this is like how you want to proactively mitigate the vulnerabilities on your application. So as we discussed earlier, you can also ask your developers to study the Hacksplaining information over here. Actually, here they also have prevention. So if you are interested, you can actually go here. After you log into the application, you do the testing, means when you are learning, you can actually compare the information over here. The website is a bit slow. They have a collection of mitigation actually, so you can ask your developers to study from here. This is a very good platform. So you can see when you go to this website, you can learn about a particular website web application vulnerability. You can also learn how to mitigate them. They have it's like a comprehensive collection of all the mitigation listed on over here. It seems to be a bit slow. This is an example for the mitigation. So you can see, for example, SQL injection. They have actually group together all the mitigation for you. And if you are into particular programming language, you can also refer some code samples from here. Please remember, don't copy paste code from here. This is only for reference purposes, okay? So you can actually learn how to mitigate the vulnerability from here. Regarding ECERT, we have to update you later on. So our team will reach you regarding the ECERT. Most possible vulnerability. So basically the top 10 vulnerabilities is not classifying which is the frequently found item. They just tell you you have to find at least these 10 items and remove it from your application. There is no grading which is the most popular one, or it all depends upon each application itself actually. Firewall bypassing technique. We can include some sessions for you in the future actually about the firewall bypassing technique, but it is like it is more towards what type of firewall we are using and how we configure it. So there is no one global solution to bypass it or fix your application using a firewall. Okay, is there any other question? We have reached the end of questions actually. So if you have more questions, you can also contact us back, and we will also share the recording with you guys later on. Okay. Yes, we will of course announce about the future sessions which may come up in the later on weeks. We will update you on that. Thank you all for joining today. Yes, let me see. There are softwares like Web Application Firewall you can actually use for detecting or preventing web application vulnerabilities. So as I was showing to you earlier on the DVWA, so you can also include something called IDS, Intrusion Detection System. Okay, so let me show you that. So my app is, okay, I'm going to my DVWA. So here in the DVWA security, you can see there is a component called PHP IDS. This is intrusion detection system. Okay, you can actually use this. There is a component called Web Application Firewall. There are many open source Web Application Firewall. You can actually implement this. So there are two categories. One is IDS, which will only detect and log all the hacking attempts. And another one is basically IPS, intrusion prevention system, that will also alert and try to mitigate the attack by itself. So you can try to include this in your application if you want to know when someone is hacking or not. So when you're practicing on DVWA, you can also enable the PHP IDS and try to bypass it by yourself actually. Yes, our next session also we are focusing on the network pen test. Yes. So I believe that the question session has ended. So yes, thank you all joining. Thank you all for joining the session today. So we will meet you in the next session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us, and we will share the recorded session with you all later. Thank you.